Happy Monday.
Happy Monday. And fresh off of CrimeCon.
Yes, yes, so exciting. We will obviously be bringing you guys some information about how it was
Mhm.
probably later this week once we get our heads around things.
Yes, once we have had a moment to decompress because it was a lot.
Yes, we definitely need that moment.
Yeah. So, straight to business, we are now on Apple subscriptions, I think is what it's called. So, if you have an Apple device, you go to podcasts, you should be able to see that you can join for a monthly service fee, right? Isn't that how it works?
Yep, yeah, they pay monthly and you will get early release episodes just like our Patreon.
Mm-hmm.
You get
Ad
bonus
free.
episodes and ad
Mm-hmm.
free.
Yeah. So check it out. If you don't want to be a member of Patreon, you choose to support us this way. We greatly appreciate either way
Would
you
do.
would like to support us.
Yeah, yeah, it's pretty nifty. It's just right there, and you just subscribe from your phone.
Yep. The next thing on our schedule is True Crime Podcast Festival. We've got a little bit of
Yes.
a wait time, a what do we call it? Layover,
Holding. I don't know.
holding
Chill
period.
where we don't have anything, but now I'm kind of sad that we don't have anything
Well, we'll
for a
have something,
bit.
but
We'll have something, yes. But yeah, that is at the end of August, correct?
end of August. Yep, August 26th through 28th. I believe they're still doing the early bird ticket price, so that's the cheapest
Hmm.
it'll ever be. So if you're going to go now, get it for the cheapest
It'll
price you can
be
get it.
in Dallas, Texas
Mhm.
this year. It's going to
Yep.
be an awesome event. I'm
Yep.
already like looking forward to this one.
Cannot wait. It's going to be really awesome. I know that we know a lot of people on the programming board. There's going to be lots of good sessions, a lot of good talks. So go get your
Yes.
tickets now.
Yes,
All right,
exactly.
on to the
I'm
wine.
on to the wine. What do you got?
I went back red for a minute
Okay, okay.
because I had not seen this one before. It's Storm Chaser Wild Ride Red. Have you seen it?
Um, I think I've seen it. I don't think I've ever had it.
Okay.
But it that looks really freaking cool.
Yeah. So it says, picked at the peak of ripeness, our grape clusters are sourced from some of the best sun drenched vineyards in the Columbia Valley of Washington State. Storm Chaser Red Blend is crafted and aged for your enjoyment. Our fruity red blend leads with aromas of cherries and ripe fruit, followed by notes of blackberry jam and subtle oak on the palate. Pair with pasta in tomato based sauce, red meats, or pizza. Serve at room temperature. That's what it tells
Okay.
us to do. So I like it.
I
I'm pretty
That's
sure I drink
awesome.
all of my wine at room temperature because I don't give it time to chill.
Sometimes I do, but it doesn't last long in the wine refrigerator, that's for sure. I was
Just
shocked the other day. I went in there and I'm like, I usually just know what's in there and what's not in there. And I was surprised there was another bottle. And I said, oh, look, I forgot this. And I was
su-
excited.
surprise wine is the best kind of wine.
It is. It really is.
All right, I'm going to jump right in. Ready?
Yeah, I am. North Carolina.
North Carolina. So my case takes us to the city of Fayetteville, North Carolina. With a population of over 210,000, it's one of the largest cities in North Carolina, and it's most known for being the home of Fort Bragg, which is a major army base. I feel like everyone kind of knows about Fort Bragg.
Yes. Yeah.
It's one of
It's
the common
huge.
names. There are actually 13 different Fayettevilles in the United States, but the one in North Carolina has the highest city population.
Oh, well, that's interesting. But yeah, I've known that there was a couple other ones in
I know.
various
I mean,
states.
I know Fayetteville, Arkansas is a big one.
Yes. That's
That's
the
where
maybe the
Walmart's from.
yes. That's probably the only one I know of actually.
I know of a couple other ones, actually, just Arkansas.
And I'm like, maybe it's just that one, Fayetteville. Hmm.
So, a fun fact about Fayetteville is that it is illegal to hold more than two bingo sessions a week
What?
or to hold one single bingo session for more than 5 hours. Just so
Like,
you know.
okay, like any given
Mhm.
business or anything can only do wow. So there's probably no bingo halls because
Well, I mean,
they
they can only be open on one day a week.
yeah, that'd be a waste of overhead.
Could
Look
be.
at me trying to business plan for them. It's not a good business
Nope, it is not.
opportunity.
All right, so my case, I already said that. My case starts with a complicated love story. Margie was a young girl who had fallen in love with two men. She was
Mm.
seeing Thomas Mel Westerfield and Carl Brock at the same time. This sounds kind of like the beginning of a Nicholas Sparks story, not gonna lie.
Yes.
She received letters from both of them while they were deployed.
Oh, they were both military?
Uh-huh, and this is in the 60s.
Ah.
Carl would send letters to Margie's mother's address, who would read the letters and then throw them away and never give them to Margie. And Mel would also send letters. The mom would read them, but would give them to Margie. So it's almost as if Margie's mom was picking for her.
Yes.
Carl even proposed to Margie before he was deployed. Margie accepted the ring, but she continued to date Mel. This is straight it's the Notebook. It literally is the Notebook. She
Oh my
accepted
gosh.
his proposal
Mhm.
even though she loved this other guy, and it was kind of like she was just trying to figure out who she wanted to be with most.
Yep, it's hard sometimes.
Sometimes it's hard. Carl was 10 years her senior, and she had met him on base at the post exchange where she was working. He was an Army sergeant who worked in the Criminal Investigations Division there at Fort Bragg. Carl's family had immigrated from Germany when he was young, and Carl enlisted back in 1945. But early on, he had issues in the military. He had met Margie, or excuse me, before he met Margie, he even served some time for robbery or assault. I couldn't find exactly which one it is, and some of the investigators, the paperwork was muddled a little bit. I mean, early 60s
Yeah.
didn't really late 50s, early 60s, they weren't great on paperwork then, you know.
Yes.
Um, lost my spot. He had served some time for robbery or assault at a federal prison in Leavenworth, Kansas, but he was given the opportunity to return to active duty or serve the remainder
Mm.
of his sentence. He decided to go back into the military, and after he was released from prison, he was actually made an officer and then assigned back to Fort Bragg.
Oh, okay.
Now, given this past, I think that's where her mother made this decision to give Carl's letters to the trash can and
Yes.
Mel's letter to Margie. You know, she
Yep.
just
As a mother, I would probably
mhm.
pick the one without the record, but
Also the same, especially if it was assault.
yes, yes.
Margie ended up marrying Mel and had two sons, Terry and Alan. Shortly after Alan's third birthday, Mel and Margie just kind of fell apart.
Oh,
They
no.
weren't they ended up getting divorced. They fell out of love. Just it
Mhm.
wasn't meant to be. Margie then resumed her relationship with Carl, so she ended up
Oh,
getting
wow.
the best of both worlds, and they eventually married. It didn't last long, and according to friends, Carl never really made an attachment to Alan or Terry, her children. Margie and her two sons lived off of Madison Avenue there in Fayetteville, and Margie was working at a local beauty parlor. On Saturday, September 12th, 1964, it was just one Saturday she couldn't miss. She really needed the income. Her and Carl were not getting along, and they had separated. Carl recently had moved out of the house, and all the bills were on her shoulders. She just really needed the money. She couldn't take a
Mhm.
Saturday off. And a
Yeah.
lot of people, I mean, I remember in the 60s, Saturdays used to be beauty shop day. That's
Yes.
when all the little old ladies would go in, get their hair done because that's
Yep.
the day they had off from work. The oops. That day, Margie had arranged for babysitter Barbara Temple to sit with the boys while she was working. Then 7-year-old Alan and 11-year-old Terry were the typical young boys. They liked to roughhouse, wrestle, ride bikes, play cowboys and Indians, but they were extremely close. And I pictured a lot like our boys, fighting
Mhm.
all the time, not really like knowing how to get along, but don't know how to live without each other all at the same time.
Yes.
Just typical boys.
Yeah. Brothers, they're so
Mhm.
close, but they're also each other's worst enemies at
Yes.
times.
Yes. That morning, Alan and Terry were watching Saturday morning cartoons for a little bit, and then they decided they wanted to go out and ride bikes. Barbara, of course, let them because that's the norm.
Yes.
I mean, think about every typical neighborhood in the 60s. There's kids running around
Mhm.
everywhere. You go outside, don't come back till the lights come on. Isn't that always what the
That's what they
kind of
tell me.
mentality was? Yeah. Around 11 a.m., Carl stopped by the house and relieved Barbara of her duties. Now, this was not a part of the plan that Margie had set, but Carl was their stepfather, and Barbara didn't think too much of it because
Yeah.
he was adamant to just give her the rest of the afternoon off. And I didn't find how old Barbara was, but I'm going to assume that she was some young teenager babysitting,
Yes.
and who wouldn't want a Saturday off with
Yeah.
her friends? So,
Give me the chance to leave work early. I am taking it.
right? So Barbara didn't think too much of it. Now, the timeline of this case gets a bit fuzzy. Obviously, there's no cell phones. People aren't watching every second of the clock in the 60s. They're doing their best here. There's no surveillance footage, of course, also because time. Both Terry and Alan made their way back home at some point, most likely for lunch. Some neighbors reported seeing Terry outside on his bike around 1 p.m., but they couldn't confirm that that was indeed the time.
Mhm.
And then he went back inside the house. Later on in that afternoon, some neighborhood kids knocked on the door to ask if Alan could come out and play. Carl answered the door and said, "Sorry, the kids can't come outside right now. They're being punished and they can't play outside. They're like in timeout, kind of it. They're in
Mhm.
trouble. They can't come outside and play." So the kids kind of went off on their way. Again, absolutely normal thing.
Yeah, nothing is out of the norm at all right here so far, and I'm like, you're building the suspense in me like crazy because I know something really crappy is about to happen.
A few hours pass, and the neighbor recalls seeing Carl drive away from the house around 4:40 p.m. And then he returns a few minutes later. He told authorities that he had taken the boys to a double feature movie at the Broadway theater in town. The theater was playing a Western titled No Name on the Bullet, followed by a sci fi movie that was called The Atomic Man. I don't know either of these movies
No,
well before my time.
they weren't blockbuster hits.
Nope.
So they were in trouble, but now he's taking them to see a movie. So they got
Mm
out of trouble real quick.
hmm. Mm hmm. He said he dropped them at the front and that he would return around 8 p.m. to gather them. They had made a plan to meet at the corner. And if you can see in this picture, the theater is kind of in the middle of a city block.
Mhm.
So he said he would meet you at the corner, but the corner was not told in all of the research that I did. It
Oh,
was the north
which
corner, the
corner?
south corner. So I'm not quite sure where. He just said,
Okay.
"We'll meet you. We'll pick you up on the corner." Margie left after her shift was over, and she made it home around 5:30 in the evening. 5:30 in the evening. She asked where the boys were, and Carl told her that he had taken the boys to the theater for the evening and that he had plans to pick them up at 8. And of course, some red flags went up. Why was Carl here? That wasn't part of the plan.
Mhm.
But maybe the kids really wanted to go to the theater. Thanks for doing that for me. That was nice of
Yeah.
you. And honestly, she kind of thought maybe Carl was trying to sweeten the deal and make up with her instead of getting a divorce.
Yes, that's where my mind would go as
Uh-huh.
well.
Now, they did get into a little bit of an argument, upset that he had made the decision to dismiss the babysitter without even consulting her with when it was about her kids. He made the decision to take the kids to the theater. But, she said, "I never get a night out, so I'm
Mhm.
going to take advantage of this." She got ready and made plans to go out with some of her girlfriends to the NCO club. Now,
Oh,
I don't know what the NCO club
it's
is.
the officer club on
Okay.
base.
Okay, that's what I was gonna ask. I'm not military, so I'm not quite sure what that stands for, but, apparently she had gone here regularly.
Okay.
The evenings she did have off or when they were with their, father, she would go to this location. At 7:45, Carl left the house again and drove to the theater. Carl parked in the no parking zone across from the theater where he could see the door and watch for the boys. By 9:30 p.m., the boys did not come out of the theater. So Carl thought, "Oh, maybe Margie grabbed them instead."
Okay.
And he heads back to the house.
All right. Yeah. I'm still following. Everything is normal. Normal, normal.
Mhm. So
Oh
when
no.
Carl got back to the house, he found it empty. He decided to wait for Margie to arrive because surely she just went and picked up the kids. Paths got crossed.
Yeah.
Again, no cell
Maybe she
phones.
had to stop by the store, grab
Sure.
something. Totally
Sure.
understandable.
Mhm. Margie didn't make it back from her girls' night until 1 a.m.,
Oh shoot.
where she found Carl waiting at her house without the kids. She asked where the boys were. He told her that he waited there until 9:30 and didn't see them because he thought she picked them up, so he left. Came back to the house. Of course, she immediately starts freaking out. Typical
Mhm.
mom. She went into panic mode. She called the police. The police came to her house, picked her up, and drove her back to the theater. At the theater, the manager was there ready to unlock the doors, hoping, best case scenario here, the kids fell asleep in the movie
Yep.
because it was later in the evening. They fell asleep in the theater. No one checked. Let's go see if they're still in there. They got locked inside.
Exactly. That's yes. Best case scenario right there.
Mhm. Unfortunately, there were no signs of the boys in the theater.
Mm.
As if her son going missing wasn't bad enough, Hurricane Dora had hit Georgia days prior, and the rainfall had worked its way north now to the Carolinas, and it was pouring. Overnight, the area was flooded with more than 2 inches of rain. Very quickly, just terrible weather. In an attempt to get creative, the police asked if maybe the boy's father would have come down to town and just picked them up for a visit out of the blue. Is that something out of the norm? Do you think it's something he could have done? Because he was actually in South Carolina, stationed at the
A
boy's
different base
father
there.
at a different base
Okay.
up there. And Margie's like, maybe, possibly, it's not something we had talked about, but sure. Obviously hoping for the best in this
Mhm.
situation. Sure, maybe. But to me, I'm like, how would he know they were at the theater? How, like, the logistics of
Yes.
this doesn't make any sense. If he's not talked to anyone, how would he know where the kids are?
Mhm.
Police,
Unless maybe he talked to the boys on a home phone or something.
yeah, okay, maybe, sure.
I don't know if this is because it's 2 brothers and we have boys, but this one is I'm, like, literally at the edge of my seat right now about what to hap has happened to them.
Local authorities call up to South Carolina. They're able to get Mel on the phone, and he says, "No, I have no clue where the boys are. I'm up here," and the alibi was verified that he's was in South Carolina. He was not anywhere near. So the reality of what is happening hits Margie all at once, and she goes into full on mental breakdown to
Oh
the point where
god.
she had to be admitted to the Womack Army Hospital for shock for 2 weeks.
2 weeks?
Mhm.
Holy crap.
During this time, Carl was brought in for questioning as he was the last one who saw the boys. He was responsible for dropping them off at the theater. His story never changed. He was adamant that he dropped the boys off around 4:40 p.m., that they had made plans to be picked up at 8 at the corner, and that's what the plan was. It never changed. He never wavered once. Now, this is not the first time the boys have been to this theater. They were regular patrons of the theater.
Mm.
His mom took them their mom took them regularly. The theater personnel knew the boys well. They would always make trips to the concession stand, even to the point where they were on first name basis. This was a
Oh,
very
wow.
common thing.
Okay.
The employees that worked that evening do not recall ever seeing the boys make it to the theater. They never saw them at the theater, never saw if tickets were sold to them. They don't remember seeing them at all that evening.
Oh, no.
They also don't recall seeing Carl there either, whether it's parked outside or
Mhm.
anything. He never stepped out of his vehicle. So if when he went to pick them up at 8 and waited till 9:30, he never even got out of his vehicle, walked up to the window and said, "Hey, have you seen the kids? We're supposed to make
Yeah.
it at 8. I was supposed to pick
That's
them up at 8."
weird.
Mhm.
'Cause you think he at the bare minimum, like, I would be if I'm there picking up my kids, which has happened a bajillion times, I'm picking them up from somewhere. I'm waiting in the car and they're not there 5, 10 minutes after they're supposed to. I'm marching my butt into that place,
Mhm.
"Come on, let's hurry up," because most likely they're just dawdling, talking to their friends, which is
Yep.
annoying, and so I'm gonna be annoyed.
Yep.
But so he never even went in. Oh,
Never
yeah,
even went
that's
in.
a big fat red flag right there.
So with little to no leads in this case, it grows cold almost instantly. There's
Mm,
no evidence of where the boys could have gone. Were they kidnapped from the theater? Did they even make it to the theater? Did Carl do something terrible to them? Did something happen at the house before the kids came that afternoon to see if they could play?
yes.
When they knocked on the door, did something happen then? And he had all evening to do something to those boys. All the questions plagued Margie for years.
Oh, no.
Mel never stopped looking for Terry and Alan. That's their biological father, Mel.
Mhm.
He wrote many journals talking about his journey searching for them. He reached out to psychics. He followed every single clue that was given. He found nothing. And in 1978, he committed suicide.
Melded?
Mhm.
Oh.
Family, friends, even police have said that they feel Carl had something to do with the boys' disappearance. Perhaps they died long before Carl claimed to drop them at the theater. What did he
What
do with the
the
bodies?
freak?
Was it the perfect opportunity to dispose of some dead bodies before the hurricane came in that would change the landscape of everything with
Mhm.
all the rain? In 2000, a State Bureau of Investigation agent visited Carl in West Virginia, where he was living at the time, and he was less than helpful with the investigation, even 36 years later. Margie was forever the optimist. She believed that her boys were alive somewhere, but unfortunately, Margie never received the answers of what happened to her sons before she passed on February 27th, 2003, at 70 years old. In 2010, age progression photographs were made by the Charlie Project and by the National Center of Missing and Exploited Children. They were made to be aged up to 57 and 58 years old, the age they would have been in 2010. And in 2012, police again tried to reach out to Carl, thinking, you know what? He's got to be in his late years. Surely he's ready
Yes.
to talk now. At the very least, just let us close out this case. I mean, there's nothing really that could happen to him at this point.
Yes.
He again showed no emotion. He was in his late 80s, showed no emotions when speaking about Terry and Alan. In fact, he referred to them as them boys, would never call them by name. The officer had even procured an immunity agreement if he would just tell them where the boys were or what happened to the boys, and he
Mhm.
refused to give any information. One quote, though, that the police chief Ballard that had met with him that evening mentioned that basically incriminated Carl. Carl told them, quote, "I was the last one to see them alive," end quote. No one to that point had ever said anything about them being dead. They were just listed as missing
Mhm.
persons, missing children. So for him to say that
It's
kind of
weird.
confirms.
What the heck? So was there prior to this day, was there any abuse or anything else going on like the mom had reported?
Nothing had been reported except the fact that he never really accepted them. I mean, it was just he was the
Mhm.
stepdad. He never really claimed them as his own kids or
Yeah.
attempted to make a relationship with them. And I honestly think from what I've read that might be part of the friction in the marriage.
Yeah, definitely.
Mhm,
Holy crap. So they're just still missing.
mhm. Still
This
considered missing.
had to have been an insanely planned out event. Like because of the whole, hey, leaving it for a few minutes to drop the boys off and having someone see it. Like I don't know. It's
Or
usually not this easy.
but I mean think about the time frame. He may have not purposely left so that someone could see him. Then that all the entertainment people have, especially old ladies that were home during the day, all the entertainment they had then was to watch the neighborhood.
Yeah, but if he's only gone a couple of minutes, how far could he go with 2 bodies?
Very true.
And then, like, I mean, in my opinion, it would take a lot of time and
Okay.
effort to clean up a house if you did do something inside the house.
They did execute a search warrant on the house and they weren't able to find anything. It
Mm,
wasn't until a little bit later though. So, and
okay.
I don't know what sort of technology they had at the time
Yeah.
to be able to really search well. But if something happened earlier in the day and that he didn't do anything with the boys' bodies until that between 7:45 and 9:30 window, that he said
Mhm.
he waited for the boys at the theater, no one confirmed that they saw Carl at the theater.
Oh, yes, that's true. Okay, so that is a lot of missing time where he could have went somewhere.
Mhm. There was another article, I could only find it in one location though, and it was on Reddit, so I'm not sure the merit of it, but it said that Carl's girlfriend, because remember he separated from his wife,
Mhm.
Carl's girlfriend, her name was Jody, I believe. I'm not gonna say her last name. Jody was supposedly one that worked at the movie theater at the time.
Oh,
So I don't know if that's where he said, "Oh, I took him to the theater," and like that's the kind of story he created in his mind
yeah.
because he had that connection there. But yeah,
Wow.
Mhm. Carl
Wow.
Carl died on May 9th, 2016 at the age of 93.
That just pisses me off that now he's dead and
Mhm.
just oh, okay.
Police have said that every piece of evidence they do have is circumstantial.
Mhm.
but they truly believe that Carl Brock is to blame.
And that he murdered them, like,
That he
today.
had some sort of insight that he's just not giving them.
Mm. Gosh dang.
58 years later, there are still no definitive answers in what happened to Terry and Alan Westerfield. It remains the oldest unsolved missing persons case on the books in North Carolina. So, of course, if you have any information, please contact the Cumberland County Sheriff's Office at 910-323-1500. I know that this one's going to be one of those that less than likely the chances of this one being solved
Yeah.
are
Slim
slim
to
to
none.
none. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't like to say that no case will ever get solved because you never know what can come forward and
That's true.
what technological advances can happen, but this one, considering anyone that's a person of interest, it's an old case. It's a very, very
Yeah.
old case.
Oh, that's one just it hits me.
It's because it's 2 boys, 2
I
brothers.
know.
It's so
Oh.
hard. So
Oh,
that's North
man.
Carolina. This is not the one that I originally was going to cover. This was the second one I chose. The first one I started researching and then found out it was solved. So
Oh,
that
I've
one's
done
gonna
that.
be that one's
And
gonna
then
be something bonus because it was a good one.
and
But
you're like, "Oh, I'm so happy this is solved, but I literally just spent the last 14 days
yes,
researching."
yes.
Yeah.
And I know this one's older and it's kind of got a little bit of dust on it, so I felt that this one was a good one to cover.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Man. Okay. That was a sad one.
I know.
Just the mom, because I can just imagine what she's feeling or she
Mhm,
felt. Oh,
mhm.
and those were her only 2 kids.
Those were her only 2 kids.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
All right.
Well, just remember that it doesn't matter how old the case is, we will be there for you no matter where.
No matter who.